Let's get ready to rumble!
20th of August, just over 2 weeks away. I will be purchasing this pay-per-view. I will also be purchasing Triple G versus CANELO. I mean, there's people complaining that DAZN have a nerve to charge us, what is it, £10, 5 AM for a pay-per-view. You do realize this is for the undisputed super middleweight title. The third fight of 2 hotly contested bouts. Triple G has a frightening KO percentage. CANELO, he's no slouch himself. Multiple weight champion. Well, no complaints here. Yeah, it would have been nice to get it free, but no complaints here. I'm a subscriber, so I get it for £10 on the pay-per-view. Yes, I'm buying it, 100%. Don't talk to me about no Tank Davis, the face of boxing, with his illegitimate belt. Floyd was crying down second-tier belts, and that's all his man is working with, is second-tier belts. Don't talk to me about no face of boxing, yeah? When there's one undisputed champion defending against one of the more popular fighters of our generation in Triple G, and then you have Anthony Joshua, another man with a crazy knockout percentage. But you can't be the face of boxing when AJ has to try and get his belts back from a former Olympic champion, one of the most decorated amateurs in recent history, formidable at the World Series of Boxing, former cruiserweight undisputed champion, and is now the unified heavyweight champion, undefeated. But you're the face of boxing, Tank Davis. Do me a favor, right? The only people saying that are biased against European boxing. They're biased against boxing in other regions around the world, whether that's Asia, Britain, or wherever it is. You're just biased. Can't wait to big up somebody who has the same accent or lives locally to you. You're biased. Why would you even make up some stuff like that when you have fighters like Terence Crawford in your country? Who cares who you want to put up as no face of boxing for popular culture? Yeah, I expected better from ISHE Smith, but you sold out, brother. You sold out. So they're the 2 pay-per-views that, off the top, I will be supporting. They are proper pay-per-views. ISHE Smith, former super welterweight champion, he went on to say, "I'm not backing down from my statements. America is starving for a white superstar boxer so bad that they crown a guy a champion who's fought retired MMA fighters and former basketball players." He's talking about Jake Paul, of course, and the WBC said they were going to rank him if he beat Hasim Rahman Jr. He's talking about him. It's always been like this. They want one so bad, they are moving the goalposts. Now, Ishe's come under fire for his comment, and some people have challenged him about, well, look how big Ali was, Muhammad Ali. And Ishe had to rebuttal that, let's stop the revisionist shit. America did not like Ali. White America didn't like Ali. What Ishe needs to remember, there was a lot of black America who didn't like guys like Ali. They didn't like the Tommy Smiths and the John Carloses, the rebels. There was a lot of people who didn't like Jack Johnson, who was a rebel in his own way, not a Pan-African rebel, but he was a rebel. But I'm not going to argue with him, because his dads and his uncles are way more clued up about America and the conditions for African Americans and the relationship between African Americans and whites historically. I know he has a point. I've heard the same arguments put forward. However, what he doesn't know, and what I do know, being a Brit, a black Brit, who's followed boxing, and regard myself as a little knowledgeable on British boxing history, Ali was hugely popular in the UK. Hugely. And he spent a lot of time out here. A whole lot. Even when he wasn't fighting, he'd pop over to the UK because he knew he wouldn't be subject to a lot of the bias that the media in America were practicing against people of colour. When they took his belts because he wouldn't go to Vietnam, took his licence, Britain still considered Ali champion. The British Boxing Board of Control, they didn't recognise Joe Frazier. They were against Ali's licence being taken away. And if Ali was alive, he'd tell you all the same stuff that I'm saying right now. I'm not going to diss Ishe. I like Ishe. But what he's saying about America wanting a white superstar boxer, I believe was only relevant until the UFC really got into swing. I don't think the white American boxing superstar thing is relevant. I don't think the White Hope, he mentioned Tommy Morrison, he mentioned Jerry Cooney, all of which he would have had knowledge of. He's not that much younger than me, and his uncles would have been telling him about that. His dad, they would have witnessed Larry Holmes having to take the same paycheck as Jerry Cooney, 10 million apiece, I believe it was, and Cooney was the challenger. Cooney also got to come out second like he was the champion. So they would have witnessed all that. They would have witnessed the back and forth between Rocky Marciano's brother Peter, the back and forth he had with Larry Holmes. And that got bogged down into a lot of a black and white debate, let's say. But since they've had stars like Conor McGregor in the UFC, even female fighters like Ronda Rousey, etc., I don't believe the same media that would stir up white hope against black champions previously before a fight are there like that. I don't believe they are. And I'm not saying they don't carry out no racial bias today. I just don't believe that's what's happening right now. I don't think the Jake Paul thing was some elaborate plot they've been orchestrating all this time. I don't believe so. I do not believe so. The first time Jake Paul fought competitively, maybe not with a pro license, was in London on the KSI Logan Paul card at the Copper Box. They sold it out. They had all these influencers, I guess, and grime artists, and had a good party. I think the Big Geordie was hosting the thing, and it was a success. They done pay-per-view on YouTube, and it was a success. And Jake Paul fought Deji on the undercard to Logan and KSI. And the whole Jake Paul thing has grown since then. I don't think America care. If they have an American white hope to win the world title, I don't really think they care anymore about that. But I could be wrong. I think boxing took a back seat in America. And if not a back seat, it has to share a lot of its audience with the UFC, or the UFC have took that audience. And you will hear from people across the pond, not from me, from across the pond, they will tell you that basketball and NFL are just a lot bigger sports than boxing. We're not talking what it was like for black boxers when Joe Louis had to give up 10% of his earnings for 10 years to the champion James J. Braddock to get a title shot. And it worked out well for Braddock because Joe held the belt for 11 years. When Joe was knocked out by Max Schmeling in the first fight, a lot of the pro-American crowd at the Yankee Stadium were jeering Joe and cheering for Max Schmeling, the German. I remember there were murmurings, not at the same velocity as Holmes versus Cooney, but when the likes of Mercer fought Morrison, there was a lot of undertone, racial undertone, black guy versus white guy for the WBO heavyweight title. Although Morrison, I believe a nephew of John Wayne, a known racist, Morrison denounced all that white hope tag. He denounced it and said, it's racist and it's dated. He did do that. I'm not saying Morrison was a great person. He infected people with whatever he had in him. He wasn't a great person, but we have to point out the facts as the facts are. We have to do that. I think the American media in America have accepted that the best white Caucasian boxers are going to come from Eastern Europe, from different regions of the world now. Arguably the best heavyweight is a British Caucasian guy. I think America, the boxing media, the sports media, the media in general, have accepted that. I don't think there's that pressure to find a white guy who can dominate boxing anymore. Not an American white guy anyway. If that's what ISHE's talking about, I don't believe so. I think there's a lot of white boxing fans, real white boxing fans, who can't stand Jake Paul. In all truth, they can't stand the Logan Jake Paul thing. I believe, and we can call Paulie Malignaggi media, we can. I believe a lot of media who may want to root for a Caucasian boxer are of the Paulie Malignaggi mind state, where he said it's no longer the era of the African-American fighter. He said the Eastern European boxer has taken over. Now, I don't agree with that. But I believe people like Paulie and anyone else who, in my opinion, are entitled to root for a boxer of the same, let's say, ethnicity or pigmentation, they are allowed to do that. I think they would just root for a Triple G, even though he's not Caucasian. They will root for a Lomachenko, a USYK. You know, Johnny Becker's the new guy. I think they would just root for them guys right now. There's no expectation or some blonde-haired American blue-eyed guy wearing a pair of Uncle Sam shorts coming out and taking over the game. I don't think that expectation is there no more. I think the Jack London White Hope thing in boxing, I'm not sure. Maybe in the UFC they might want to see more white dudes at the top. I don't know. But in boxing, I just don't think there's that appeal. I just don't think boxing's that big in America where you get a section of media trying to concoct a narrative where this white guy needs to be on top of the boxing world, especially the heavyweight division. I don't see it. Steven Torres, he got a medal in the last Olympics. Maybe he might be the guy they get hyped up about. Who knows? When's the last time a white American has challenged for a heavyweight title? When's the last time? When's the last time a white American boxer has been ranked? A white American heavyweight has been ranked. When's the last time? I think that ship sailed, to be honest, ISHE. I do believe that. In all truth, the last campaign to hype up an American boxer has been the black boxing fans, and the YouTube channels behind Deontay Wilder have really tried to up the ante of support for Deontay Wilder. We've seen that over the last, let's say, 5 years or so. And these are black boxing fans. When's the last time we've seen some white channels, some white media, yeah, let's get this white American boxer on top? Because that's who ISHE must mean. He must mean a white American boxer. I don't believe he's talking about boxers outside of America when he says they want to hype up Jake Paul. I think Mauricio Sulaiman is just stupid ranking Jake Paul if he beats Hasim Rahman. The fight apparently has been called off. And I agree with ISHE Smith. Like, if you're fighting at 200 pounds or over and someone weighs 5 pounds over or whatever, or 10 pounds, and you're knocking out basketball players a lot smaller than you, what's the real big deal? I mean, Hasim Jr. has already lost quite a bit of weight. I think they'll go back to matching Jake with people who have limited boxing skills. Not saying that Hasim Rahman is anywhere elite or anything like that, but to keep the Jake Paul bandwagon going on. Remember, Showtime have invested money into him as well. And if Jake Paul goes in with a boxer remotely competent, he's going to be in a lot of doo-doo. Let's keep it real. I'm not sure if that's the reason why the fight's been cancelled. I think Dana White, even though he's got a beef with Jake Paul, so, you know, let's not just 100 get behind what Dana's saying. He was saying that the tickets are moving like molasses. He reckons they've sold less than $1 million worth of tickets, and it's 500 grand just to put the lights on in the MSG. He could have a point. If he does have a point, Amanda Serrano might have her regrets about hitching her wagon to Jake Paul. The whole thing about why don't Katie Taylor move down to 126 and fight Serrano. You can't make demands on Katie Taylor. You had to go on her platform under her promoter's banner, DAZN and Eddie Hearn, to get that payday. And all this trying to drain Katie Taylor and now trying to drain Hasim Rahman Jr. What's up with Jake Paul? What's up with Jake? And if Serrano loses out on that big payday at Croke Park, and yes, fighting at Croke Park does increase the possibilities of Amanda losing a decision. It does, no doubt. But then again, look, Katie came over to Amanda's backyard, and you can say, well, it didn't matter regardless. The politics were still corrupt in Katie's favour. But she did go over there. When you can argue, she didn't need to. I don't want to get into no A-side and this, that. I don't want to get into that, right? But Katie didn't really need to go over there. I'm not going to bash Amanda. I like Amanda. But Amanda's got a lot of concessions. I mean, financially, she wasn't really holding her weight with Katie when this fight was initially announced a couple of years back. And she still wanted the fight in America, didn't want to come over to Britain, didn't want to give up nothing. And now it's a two-way street, let's be honest, right? Because now Amanda isn't taking that rematch in Croke Park. Croke Park don't want to put Katie Taylor's next fight on. They don't want to put it on there. They wanted the Amanda Serrano fight. So let's not pretend it's a one-sided deal that Katie's the A side and then Amanda has to bow to all her demands. No. I'm not sure what Amanda's issue is really. I think I know what it is. I think it's Showtime getting in the way and trying to block Eddie Hearn and DAZN and Matchroom from putting on that fight. That's what I believe. And these are things that Amanda, you know, you gotta watch your back and don't rely on all these dudes to do the right thing. Whether it's Steven Espinoza, Jake Paul, or whoever. It's still a humongous payday, and you would have thought with that battle she put up in the first fight that it's a worthwhile risk. But maybe Serrano is so happy with the first purse, and she knows her finances better than me. Maybe she's satisfied with what she has and she can function with that, and now choose what fights she wants to take and get round to the Katie Taylor thing when she's ready, perhaps. And that's fair enough. But if that ship has sailed, she has to ask herself what girl out there can get her a purse like Katie Taylor can between 126 and 135. Assuming all of these payments were made, which proof has not been provided, nor has the WBA acknowledged receipt of these funds, the net purse of $908,274.32 was to be paid to Daniel Dubois by Don King Promotions immediately after the bout with Trevor Bryant, in accordance with the Florida State Boxing Commission letter of agreement between promoter and participant. Additionally, $475,000 was to be paid to Queensbury Promotions as a license fee for the right to broadcast the event on live television in the United Kingdom. Now, there's a typo there. Dan Raphael pointed this out, and somebody astutely following the story said, well, why would Don King pay Queensbury, or BT, a license fee for the right to broadcast the fight? Wouldn't they pay Don King? Because he did win the purse bid. And they're correct. So what I'm assuming they're saying here is Daniel Dubois would have credited Don King that $475,000 rights fee to broadcast the fight, and then Daniel would have been left with $463,274.32 as the total net amount of his purse. So now Daniel Dubois has filed a lawsuit against Don King's company for Don King Promotions, in which he alleges breach of contract because he has not been paid for his fight with Trevor Bryant in June, according to Dan Raphael. Now, let's stay with Daniel Dubois' purse, which was $900,000 plus. But a big chunk comes out of that for the rights fee for BT to broadcast it, and Queensbury. These are what BT and Queensbury have been involved with, these ghost bids, like with Tyson Fury. Everybody assumes that he didn't get $23 million against Dillian Whyte. They bid that much to ensure the fight stayed over at Queensbury, but is Tyson Fury really getting $23 million? Who knows? I'm not in the man's pocket or in his finances like that. Good luck to him. He got a good payday anyway. But, you know, Daniel is now the latest fighter to be in a legal battle with Don King. And in a way, Frank Warren's put Daniel in this situation because Frank knows that Don is not the force he used to be. I don't know what Don's done with his money. If he's got it all once again, it's Don's business. I'm not in his pocket. I'm not in his account or anything like that. But Don was calling out for help. So don't go to no purse bid. Why don't you help him put the fight on? But I think because Frank had that beef with Don, where Don wiped him out in the court years back, Frank let Don put this Trevor Bryant, Daniel Dubois fight on for that shitty belt, which Alexander Usyk has the proper version of. People were laughing at the arena the fight was held in, what they call it, the Meccano Arena, with a Lego brick boxing arena. And it wasn't Don King in all his glory, was it? Right? You allowed him to do that. What was the game? It was on BT at what time in the morning? And now Daniel's having to take Don King to court to try and get his purse, and BT and Queensbury are going to try and get their money for the $400,000 they laid out to put it on television. Hopefully Daniel gets his money, and I'm not sure if we see Don King pop up again in any significant world title fights. Well, if you can call that a world title fight, in any kind of significant fights across the pond anymore. I don't know if that's the last we've seen of Don. Probably not. Don't count him out. But the logical place to host that fight was in London. Daniel, I would assume, is a bigger draw in England than Trevor Bryant is in America. They wouldn't even need to go to the O2. If they held that in the Copper Box, they would have filled that out. Or the O2, I'm sure they would have got 10,000 people in there. Daniel fighting for an interim belt. But instead they let Don King promote an event where he was probably in over his head with Trevor Bryant. I wonder if Trevor's got paid. British heavyweight journeyman Phil Williams shared some interesting observations. Said once you start winning, the phone stops ringing. Now a lot of people probably watched the title of that and said, that don't make sense, probably it's a typo. The more you start winning, the more the phone starts ringing. Not if you're the away fighter or the journeyman. Now, he lost a close decision to Steve Robinson on the Wasserman bill in the Northeast on Saturday, which Josh Kelly was headlining. He believes he won. He believes he nicked the fight. Steve Robinson still has a winning record, and whoever's handling his affairs would like to see him push ahead and see how far he can take it. Yeah, he lost to someone he shouldn't on paper have lost against on the Eubank Williams undercard a few months back. Big guy, and if he can put a run together, you never know. Northern area title, English title, or make a run for the British title. You never know. You never know. I don't know if Steve Robinson is a full-time pro or if he's moonlighting other jobs. Phil Williams, though, he works 9 to 5 and he gets in the gym in the evening. That's what he does. Kamil Sokolowski, same thing. I believe he works on a building site and would likely be in the same position as Phil Williams. Gets in the gym in the evening. And Phil Williams was talking about Kamil, how after defeating George Fox, knocking out Nick Webb, upsetting a few British prospects in there, in my opinion, he got jobbed against David Adilier, a BT prospect. After these performances, you can look at the box rec. He has to take a lot of fights abroad. I forgot to mention, he went the distance with Otto Wallin, who gave Tyson Fury a pretty good fight and is a fringe contender, if you like. After losing on points to Otto Wallin this year, Kamil Sokolowski, he went to Dubai to take on the unbeaten Olympic gold medalist Jalolov in Dubai, and he lost in the 5th. He was dropped a couple of times. Now, you would think that would perk up some promoters to say, okay, we'll put our prospect in with him. No, Jalolov is a bona fide prospect. A blue chip prospect in the game. Do you think if Steve Robinson goes on a 5-fight unbeaten run, they're going to put him in with Kamil Sokolowski? It's doubtful, because it's dangerous. And you have to wonder sometimes, do some journeymen deliberately lose? Because you have to remember, right? Like, unless they get some idea in their head that, no, I'm not having this no more. I'm going to start pushing these guys and I'm going to try and win. I'm going to try and knock them out. Unless they get that in their head, the work will dry up for them. Literally, if they have any ability and they're pushing these guys too hard, knocking them out, beating them, or just giving them too hard a fight, the work will dry up. Nobody's going to call for them. And you have to wonder sometimes if they lay off some of these prospects just so they can get regular work. Because what you have to remember is the likes of Phil Williams and Kamil Sokolowski would literally fight once or twice every month if they could, if the work is there. And providing they don't get stopped, there's no suspensions and they can just keep picking up paychecks. And for someone like, let's no disrespect to Phil Williams, but Kamil Sokolowski is at a different scale in terms of levels as a journeyman. Kamil has put himself in a position where promoters are saying, no, I'm just not going to put my guy in there with him. And I think Steve Robinson might be promoted by Wasserman, by Cali. And if the likes of Kamil or Phil Williams cannot get on Wasserman cards, Sky cards, Matchroom or BT cards, it's a tough road. Them smaller hall cards outside them entities I mentioned there, it's peanut money, basically. Carl Greaves, he was the matchmaker for the Sky card on Saturday, where Chris Billiam-Smith beat Isaac Chamberlain. Fraser Clark was on the undercard. They said they're going to fast-track Fraser. That's what they said. I don't know if Carl Greaves is going to continue to do the matchmaking for Fraser. Fraser had a to-be-announced, a late substitute opponent on Saturday. They would tell us that the guy that Fraser fought went the distance with Jarrell Miller, but Jarrell Miller has been so inactive and he was so heavy when he fought that guy. And that guy's coming in at short notice. Well, if we're going to fast-track Fraser, will we see the likes of a Sokolowski in the ring with him in his first 10 fights? Because Fraser is an Olympic bronze medalist. He should be a relatively advanced prospect. I don't know. They're going to have to calculate whether they take that risk. Because, yes, Jalolov got him out of there. Fraser fought Jalolov in the Olympic semi-final and was doing well until them cuts opened up. I don't know. Hopefully we will see Kamil Sokolowski get to test Fraser Clark in his first 10. I would like to see that type of opponent for Fraser in his first 10 or 5 bouts. Why not? They said they're going to fast-track Fraser. What does that mean? He should be able to take on the likes of Kamil Sokolowski. But Phil Williams has gave us a vital insight that these promoters are actually not just scanning rival prospects that their prospects could be fighting, they're actually scanning how dangerous journeymen are now. And a lot of journeymen are not turning up in the ring because they're deemed too dangerous. I mean, I haven't seen Frank Warren order David Adilier to clean up the Kamil Sokolowski fight. No, they're going to forget it ever happened and move on. And at that point, that's what we're going to do here. We're going to move on to another topic. Lou DiBella and George Kambosos, they're going to be stubborn, put in the position they're in now. Proud, if you like. But Eddie Hearn, and no, this is not an exclusive, it's not a breaking news. So if you're in the comment section saying this is old news, it's not old news. It's around a week and a half old. That's not old news. It's just not breaking news. I don't really pride myself on being a clickbait breaking news guy. I just like to give you a breakdown on the story. Not, oh look guys, I discovered it first. I'm a more mature channel, if you like. So understand this, yeah? Bob Arum is the line to ESPN, not Lou DiBella. Bob is the line to ESPN. And Lou can't run back to Eddie. They've made their deal where Lou and Bob have options on Devin's next moves, and that would apply to George Kambosos as well. Thing is though, after the one-sided nature of the first fight, and I predicted Devin was going to win this, I never saw it being an issue Devin winning this fight. A lot of people were saying, oh, George Kambosos is this, that, and he's going to beat Devin. This was always Devin's fight. And unless Kambosos can land one shot and take Devin out in the rematch, Devin's going to try and put a real punctuation on this rematch and own Kambosos. Two different levels on boxing skills. We saw that in the first fight. And as they're saying here, Eddie spilt the tea because Eddie spent a long time negotiating this fight for Devin Haney before it went over to ESPN and Bob Arum. And he said, I know the numbers. They've got to find a way to find the numbers to do Haney Kambosos 2 in Australia. The fight is not appealing because of the first fight. And these are the hard facts that Lou DiBella and Kambosos are going to have to deal with. Like Bob has said, maybe Kambosos can take another fight and then perhaps visit the Devin fight next time around. Now, that sounds nice, Bob, but the truth is, unless George beats a high-ranked lightweight contender in his next fight and looks good, nobody is going to want to see the fight. It was too one-sided. Nobody wants to see a rematch. And there's a lot of people out there saying they should get rid of the rematch clause in boxing. That's not the solution. It's not the solution. Rematch clauses are here to stay. People want to protect their investments, and a rematch clause often is the best way to do so, right? I think conditions on the rematch clause need to be updated. Like, let's say you win a one-sided fight, a one-sided points win or a one-sided beatdown, stoppage or whatever, then the clause could be compromised after that. The logistics don't hold up for an immediate second fight. And I think this is a case of that. Now, I know some people are going to say, well, what about Joshua versus USYK? Well, I tell you what, you could make the argument and you have a fair point. You could make the argument. The thing is, though, you're going to have to ask USYK. Put the suggestion to USYK. Well, you won the first fight unanimously. Why do you want to fight AJ again? Well, USYK would give you £30 million worth of reasons why he wants to fight Joshua again. It's not comparable to Devin Haney and Kambosos. It just isn't. You might not be one of them, but there's a lot of people who want to see this rematch between Joshua and USYK. The Saudis found a $65 million site fee for USYK and Joshua. Yeah? That's the bottom line. Whether you like it or not, Joshua is a draw and Kambosos isn't. Bob is eventually going to have to talk to Lou DiBella and say, look, I understand you want to exercise your rematch, Lou, but who's going to pay for it? Are you going to pay for it? Are you going to pay Kambosos's and Devin's purse? Are you going to pay? Who's going to pay for it? The Lomachenko fight is the fight for Devin. Now Devin isn't with Eddie. He's rolling with Bob now. The Lomachenko fight is the fight for Devin. It's a great fight for Lomachenko, and it's a great fight for Devin. It's a great fight for boxing. It's for the undisputed title. I want to see it. You want to see it. And if anyone tells me they want to see Kambosos against Devin before Lomachenko, of course you're entitled to your opinion, but ESPN are going to have the sanctioning bodies, the commissions, and everybody on their side. Because this is the better fight for boxing. And common sense will more than likely prevail. at the next WBC convention, they would discuss transgender boxing. It's argued that transgender women have an unfair advantage over cisgender women in competitive sports and may endanger cisgender women due to differences in human physiology, and that these differences are not sufficiently reversed by transgender hormone therapy. Another opinion sector argues that medically prescribed puberty blockers and estrogen suppress testosterone levels and reduce muscle mass in transgender women, reducing potential competitive advantage. The WBC are loyalty, fairness, integrity, and fairness again. I bet Suleiman wrote this himself. We elevate boxing and protect the health and well-being of boxers as our number one priority. We are committed to protecting human rights, eradicating discrimination, and helping those who need it most. We believe that boxing is for everyone, and this is what they're going to discuss. Now, addressing women with fairness and reality. With power comes great responsibility. I don't deny anyone for fighting for rights they believe they are due, but when you get them, do you know what to do with them? Because there are a lot of issues where women like to shut men out of the conversation. Parental rights is a contentious one. These abortion laws that are being discussed in America, they're also being discussed over here, and every time a man has more than a monosyllabic response to the situation, it always seems like he gets shut down very quick. And I think a lot of men are thinking, well, if women are going to ask men for their support against men who want to now be women and compete in a boxing ring against actual women who are born women, punching them in the head in a professional boxing ring, they should give thanks that we're not so petty. Nah, we'll just let you handle this yourselves. You ain't going to get no support. Because if men wanted to be selfish, let's say I'm a boxer. Am I really threatened by women having hormone replacement, becoming men, wanting to fight me in the ring? Or am I more threatened by men who are actually born men, boys who have went through puberty who want to fight me? It's totally different when this same boy who's went through puberty and is 14, 15 years of age and now he's deciding he wants to switch his gender and is getting hormone replacement. The hormone replacement cannot stop the job that the testosterone has done building up his body for 14 or 15 years. Yeah? This isn't swimming. And I know Sharon Davis has fought hard against the whole notion that transgender men should be able to compete with women. And that's swimming she's talking about in athletics. This is professional boxing. If the WBC are even contemplating to let men, born men, who have gone through puberty as adolescent teenage boys to compete with women in professional boxing rings, just need a couple of bad endings. We could see the end of professional boxing. They'll have to ban it. But Mauricio is probably going to do the whole, look how we're committed to equality and wokeness and fairness and all that, rather than 100% ban. If you are born male, you will not fight female boxers in a professional ring, period. It's not athletics. It's not throwing a hammer, a discus, 100 meters or swimming. And I probably side with the argument there should be a 100% ban on that too, in all truth. I don't want to be insensitive because a lot of people are going through what they're going through, but the feelings of individuals should take second place to the overall detriment of the whole picture. Letting men, because that's what they are, they're men punching women in their head, saying, oh, you've had hormone therapy and that's going to negate how much damage you can do. That's absolute nonsense. It has to be absolute nonsense. Roll on this convention. I'll be listening, Mauricio. I'll be listening. Lyndon Arthur signed to Wasserman. Now, it's a good signing for Lyndon. He felt underappreciated at BT with Frank Warren, playing bridesmaid to Anthony Yard, at least in his opinion, and to a lot of people observing from the outside. Now, here's the thing. They're not going to put Lyndon in with any killers in the first couple of fights on Channel 5. And after watching Josh Kelly in the main event the other day, and Nathan Gorman and that blowout he had in the main event the other week, if Lyndon is gonna do the main event thing on Channel 5 and he's not in with quality opposition, Lyndon can tend to fight down to the level of his opponent. If they haven't got a good name in there that a lot of us hardcores know, it could be another drab main event with Lyndon headlining. Just keeping it real. Hopefully they'll get Lyndon one fight to get his confidence back, and we can look at what's out there. And we do have a very potentially live domestic scene at 175. The EBU, probably not deliberately, they just probably didn't check the schedules. They ordered Boatsi versus Callum Smith, but they're going in separate directions right now. Boatsi looks like he's going to take on Jean Pascal, and Callum Smith, he could be doing something on the Anthony Joshua card, I'm not sure. He has an eliminator for one of the sanctioning bodies against a French light heavyweight named Bordalik. They're talking about the next two available contenders being Lyndon Arthur and Callum Johnson. Now, Frank Warren did let Denzel Bentley go over to Channel 5 the other day to fight Udofia for the British title, and that was the Sauerland's or Wasserman's first card on Channel 5, and that was an excellent main event. Is Frank willing to let Callum Johnson go over there and take the scalp of Lyndon Arthur? Or are Wasserman willing to let Lyndon go over to Queensbury and BT and try and take the scalp of Callum? Let the purse bids begin.